Tensions on the rise between President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky after Trump called him a dictator without elections.
Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with all the details here. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Carly and Todd. President Trump doubling down on those comments about Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky while speaking in Miami to business leaders hosted by Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund.
The only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Trump could meet this month in Saudi Arabia. The Kremlin said it's possible. Right now, Russia makes more weapons and ammunition in 3 months than the entire NATO alliance, including the United States, makes in a year, officials say. The U.S. makes 50,000 artillery rounds a month, Russia 250,000. Now, following Trump's remarks on Truth Social calling Zelensky a dictator, the Ukrainian president fired back, calling Trump's comments Russian disinformation. That prompted Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance to respond, telling the Daily Mail, quote, "The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that is an atrocious way to deal with this administration." So we'll see, guys, whether President Trump meets with Russia's president later this month. Stay tuned. Carly,
Stay tuned is right. Lucas, thank you. Let's bring in former Deputy National Security Advisor and the VP of National Security at the Heritage Foundation, Victoria Coates. Victoria, where do we go from here?
Well, good morning, Todd. Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is positioning and ahead of any negotiations. I think that both President Zelensky and President Trump are pretty media savvy and are kind of laying out where what they think are their positions of strength. But I think we have to remember President Zelensky has really allowed himself to be politicized by the Biden administration. Remember when he went to Pennsylvania in the heat of the general election at the end of September of last year to visit an ammunition factory. It didn't take anyone from the Republican side with him, just a bunch of Democrats. It was essentially a campaign appearance for Kamala Harris. So he's already deep in the thick of American politics. And I think President Trump remembers that and doesn't appreciate it.
Yeah, the left loves to say Trump favors Putin and that they're buddies. That's what the critics are saying. But one theory I heard, and I think it's interesting, I want to get your thoughts. Trump, one, wants to end the war, but two, he is also trying to build our alliance with Russia so that Russia decouples from China. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is of the last 3 presidencies, 4 if you count Trump twice, the only president under whom Ukraine was not invaded by Vladimir Putin was Donald Trump. So if his relationship with Vladimir Putin prevented a horrible war in the first term, hopefully he can end this war in the second term. And that's definitely a better relationship with Russia. Now, Putin's economic dependence on China is such that it's going to be very hard to peel him off, but we can make that relationship problematic for China. And I think that would be a really good thing for our bigger challenge, much bigger than Ukraine, which of course is China.
I think that is such an important point. We get lost in the weeds with Russia, Ukraine. China is the #1 geopolitical adversary that we have, and we need to keep our eye on the ball at all times with regard to them.
Here to react, former Assistant Secretary of State for Reagan and Bush 41, Robert Charles, and Foundation for Defense of Democracy's founder, Cliff May. Cliff, to you first on this. I know one thing. President Trump's the only guy not responsible for any of this. And to quote Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, he said that a few months ago, everybody was talking about this war as if it would never end. Now we're talking and debating now how it will end. What say you?
Well, I think there is a way to achieve the goals that President Trump and his top advisors, Scott Bessent, Mike Waltz, Marco Rubio, have discussed in the past. For what it's worth, I have a column in the Washington Times today talking about exactly that. What are the goals? A ceasefire would be good, a cessation of hostilities. That's not peace and concord, but that's a good thing. And then you want to guarantee the independence of Ukraine going forward. That's really vital. We don't want Ukraine swallowed up by Russia in that empire, and then Putin using those resources to take on other countries, including those in NATO. And a relationship economically with the U.S., I think Trump is right based on the fact that there are untapped resources in Ukraine, mineral wealth, rare earths, and if those rare earths can buy Ukraine peace and independence and freedom, I think that's a win-win. It's a win for Ukraine. It's a win for America. It's a win for Trump 2.0. But Putin doesn't get to swallow Ukraine and crush that country.
Robert, speaking for myself, I take issue with a few of the things that Trump said, a few of the characterizations, and then he also seemed to suggest yesterday that Ukraine started the war, which isn't true. That being said, I'm sort of puzzled by Zelensky's choices here to start kind of poking at Trump and taking the shot that he did about the disinformation bubble, or however he framed it. Has he not learned how Donald Trump works over these last number of years? It seems like if he wants to get something out of this administration, saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, maybe not the best approach.
Yeah, look, some people have a hard time reckoning with reality. The jig is up for Mr. Zelensky. Of the 32 countries that are NATO countries, if you take 31 of them that are not the United States and add up what they spent on this war, and then you add in what we spent more than all other 31 members of NATO on this war. This is an endless war unless it gets ended. And what Trump is looking at right now is the obvious geopolitical incentives to get this to a close right now. Russia has lost more than they've lost in any war at any point except World War II. They are at a bottom. They are getting their ammunition from China. They're getting their men from North Korea. They're in a bad position. Okay, Zelensky, meanwhile, has actually one of the most corrupt governments on the face of the planet, and he had that before this war began. And he is not well regarded by a lot of people. And what do you think is going to happen when this war comes to a close? He's going to come hat in hand and ask the United States of America, all of us taxpayers who forked over hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild his part of Ukraine. Look, the answer here is straightforward. The Russian part of Ukraine, the part that wants to be part of Russia, the part that Russia currently has, the part of Russia, the part of Ukraine that honestly is Russian speaking, needs to probably have a line drawn down it, and Zelensky needs to ask Europe and the United States to help build back what remains of Ukraine. This is otherwise an endless war. And American taxpayers, for all that we love freedom, we are sick and tired of spending billions upon billions for a guy that can't even find where 50% of that money's gone.
If I hear, Robert, one more Dick Cheney-loving neocon war hawk talk about how this is money well spent by Washington because a large percentage of it was put back in our economy to build new weapons and munitions here in the United States, by that kind of economic logic, then what? That's an economic theory equivalent of, hey, let's invade a country like Sweden. Just think of all the jobs in the military and the weapons and the ammunition the U.S. makes. In fact, that logic about we make weapons being shipped to Ukraine or to replace the ones used in Ukraine, it is actually inflationary, because it employs people to make things they can't consume, like bombs. It pays them money, but it doesn't create supply of other consumer goods that we need and do consume.
Look, there's no
I'd like to make a couple points.
Wait, hold on. That's to Robert.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no justification for going to war because you're going to make money on it, okay? The reality isn't even what you just described. The reality is we have run down our stockpiles. We've run down IMARS. We've run down major missile systems. We've run down a huge inventory of our own ammunition. What if we have to engage right now in Taiwan? What if we have to engage right now in another part of Europe? What if we have to engage to protect our own borders? Bottom line is, This war needs to end. Zelensky needs to straighten up and fly right. And you know what? The incentives are right there right now. Even China can be brought in on this because they don't want to keep pumping money into Russia in order to keep fighting this war. And at the end, Europe doesn't want to pump any more money into Ukraine either.
Cliff, quickly.
The bottom line here, I'm sorry, is Ukraine is the victim, Putin is the victimizer. If he thinks the U.S. is going to abandon Ukraine, the way Biden abandoned Afghanistan, the way Obama abandoned Iraq, he's going to fight on in Ukraine and beyond Ukraine. We're talking about 3% of our defense budget going to Ukraine so the Ukrainians can fight Putin, who is in a no-limits partnership with the communists in China and with Tehran. That's an axis of aggressors who wants to see that America is never great again.
Robert Charles, Cliff May, thank you both.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.